The winter sun cast long shadows across Bennett Automotive, a modest garage nestled between towering skyscrapers in downtown Westfield. Chen hunched over a disassembled motorcycle engine, her slender fingers moving with surprising precision through the intricate metal components. At 23, with her raven hair tucked beneath a faded red bandana and smudges of grease highlighting her high cheekbones, she looked like any other struggling mechanic trying to make ends meet in a city built for the wealthy. But Maya wasn't just fixing engines to pay rent. She was silently revolutionizing them, one invisible modification at a time, creating efficiency improvements the automotive world hadn't yet discovered. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The rhythmic tapping of Maya's wrench against metal filled the otherwise quiet garage. Most of the staff had already left for the evening, but Maya always stayed late. The garage owner, Joe Bennett, had given her special permission to use the space after hours to work on her own projects, a small kindness that had made all the difference in her life. "Almost there," she murmured to herself as she adjusted the final valve on the vintage Kawasaki engine. This was her fourth restoration project this month, each one sold online to collectors willing to pay premium prices for perfectly restored motorcycle engines. The money supplemented her meager salary and helped support her younger brother, Liam, through his first year of community college. The sudden roar of an engine outside interrupted her concentration. Through the open garage door, Maya glimpsed a Ferrari 812 Superfast, candy apple red and worth more than she'd earned in a decade, pulling into the parking lot. The car came to an abrupt stop, tires screeching against asphalt. Maya sighed and set down her tools. The garage was technically closed, but rich clients rarely cared about posted business hours. She wiped her hands on a rag and moved toward the entrance, preparing her standard after-hours response. "I'm sorry, but you'll need to return tomorrow when—" The words died in her throat as the Ferrari's door swung upward, and a man unfolded. From the driver's seat, even to someone who avoided celebrity gossip like Maya, Jackson Thorne was instantly recognizable. Tech billionaire, founder of Thorne Industries, and according to every business magazine, the most eligible bachelor in the country. His tailored charcoal suit probably cost more than 6 months of her rent. "Is the owner here?" he demanded, without preamble, not bothering with a greeting as he surveyed the garage with obvious disdain. His gaze swept over Maya as if she were merely another piece of equipment. "Mr. Bennett has gone home for the day," Maya replied, maintaining a professional tone despite his rudeness. "We open tomorrow at 8. Jackson Thorne checked his watch, a timepiece that could have paid for Liam's entire college education, and frowned. "That's unacceptable. My car is making an unusual noise, and I have an important meeting in the morning." "There are several luxury service centers across town that offer emergency services," Maya suggested, already turning back toward her workbench. She had no patience for entitled rich men who expected the world to bend to their schedules. "I've tried them all. They're booked solid with some car show in town." His voice carried the confidence of someone unaccustomed to hearing the word no. "Look, I'll make it worth your while. $5,000 if you can at least diagnose the problem tonight." Maya froze. $5,000 would cover Liam's textbooks for the entire year and maybe even put a dent in their grandmother's medical bills. She turned back slowly, studying the Ferrari with a practiced eye. "What kind of noise are we talking about?" Jackson raised an eyebrow, apparently surprised she hadn't immediately jumped at his offer. "A knocking sound when I accelerate past 60. Started this afternoon." Maya approached the vehicle cautiously, as one might approach a beautiful but temperamental animal. "May I?" she asked, gesturing toward the hood. He nodded, pressing a button that caused the front hood to rise smoothly. Maya leaned in, careful not to touch the immaculate paint with her grease-stained clothes. The Ferrari's engine compartment was a masterpiece of engineering, clean lines and precision components arranged with artistic intent. "Can you start it?" she asked, reaching for a nearby diagnostic tablet. Jackson slid back into the driver's seat and fired up the engine. The Ferrari purred to life, its idle so smooth it was barely perceptible. Maya connected her tablet to the onboard computer port and began scrolling through data. "Accelerate slightly, please. Just enough to simulate the conditions when you hear the knock." He complied, revving the engine. Maya listened intently, her expression focused as she toggled between screens on her tablet. After a few minutes, she disconnected the device and straightened. "You can turn it off." "Well?" Jackson asked impatiently as he killed the engine. "What's the verdict?" Maya hesitated, knowing her answer would not be well received. "There's nothing wrong with your engine, Mr. Thorne." His expression hardened. "I didn't imagine that knocking sound." "I didn't say you did," Maya replied carefully. "But it's not mechanical. Your custom exhaust system has a loose heat shield. It's expanding when the exhaust gets hot from acceleration and creating that knocking sound. It's a 10-minute fix." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Jackson's eyes narrowed skeptically. "That's impossible. I had this car completely checked over at the dealership last week. Dealership techs sometimes miss these things, especially on custom work." Maya shrugged. "I can fix it now if you'd like, or you can take it somewhere else tomorrow." A flash of something, irritation, challenge, crossed his face. "You expect me to believe that you—" He gestured vaguely at her grease-stained coveralls. "Can diagnose in 5 minutes what certified Ferrari technicians missed?" The implication was clear. How could someone like her, young, female, working in a modest garage, possibly know more than the elite specialists who serviced vehicles worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks, but kept her expression neutral. She'd encountered this prejudice countless times since entering the male-dominated field of mechanical engineering. Her undergraduate professors, the garage clients, even Joe, when she'd first applied for the job, all had underestimated her because of her appearance. "Actually," she said evenly, "I expect you to pay me the diagnostic fee we agreed upon, then decide whether you want me to fix the problem or not." Jackson studied her for a long moment, his blue eyes calculating. Then, to her surprise, his mouth curved into a slight smile. "Tell you what, if you're right about the heat shield, I'll pay you double. If you're wrong, and it's something more serious, I pay nothing, and you admit you were out of your depth." Maya should have walked away. $5,000 was already generous for a simple diagnosis, but something in his smug certainty triggered a competitive streak she usually kept buried. "Deal," she said, reaching for her toolbox. "But I'll need you to sign a standard work authorization first. Garage policy." "Of course," he agreed, still looking amused at what he clearly believed would be her imminent failure. 20 minutes. Later, Maya emerged from beneath the Ferrari, a twisted piece of metal in her hand. "Here's your problem. The mounting bracket fractured, probably from road vibration. I've secured it properly now." She wiped her hands and reached for her tablet. "Again, want to test it?" Jackson's expression remained skeptical as he started the engine and revved it repeatedly. No knocking sound emerged. He accelerated more aggressively, pushing the RPMs higher. Still nothing. "Take it for a quick drive," Maya suggested, gesturing toward the street. "Just don't break any speed limits." He didn't need to be told twice. The Ferrari shot out of the parking lot, its engine singing as it disappeared down the street. Maya used the moment alone to exhale deeply, releasing tension she hadn't realized she'd been holding. What had possessed her to make that bet? to challenge someone who could buy and sell the entire garage 100 times over. The Ferrari returned 5 minutes later, pulling smoothly into the lot. Jackson emerged looking slightly less arrogant than before. "The knock is gone," he admitted, reaching for his wallet. "I suppose I owe you $10,000. Maya should have accepted the money graciously and ended the interaction, but something about his tone, the lingering disbelief as if she'd solved the problem through luck rather than skill, rankled. "Actually," she said, "I believe you owe me an apology as well." Jackson's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me, you assumed I couldn't possibly know what I was talking about because of how I look. That was insulting." A tense silence stretched between them. Maya suddenly realized how reckless her words were. Men like Jackson Thorne didn't apologize to people like her. He could easily refuse payment now, and what recourse would she have? To her astonishment, he laughed, a genuine sound devoid of mockery. "You're absolutely right," he acknowledged, his expression shifting to something resembling respect. "I made assumptions based on appearances, and I was wrong. I apologize." He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen several times. "I've just transferred $20,000 to the garage's account. Consider the extra a penalty for my prejudice." Maya blinked in surprise. "That's generous, but unnecessary." "Actually, it is necessary," Jackson countered, pocketing his phone. "I pride myself on recognizing talent, and I clearly failed to do so here." He paused, studying her with new interest. "You're not just a mechanic, are you?" The question caught her off guard. "I have a degree in mechanical engineering from State University," she admitted reluctantly. "But the job market is tight, and this pays the bills while I work on my own projects." "Projects?" His interest seemed genuine now. Maya hesitated. She never discussed her work with strangers, particularly not potential competitors who might steal her ideas. But something in his expression, a flash of genuine curiosity, made her reconsider. "I'm developing efficiency modifications for combustion engines," she said carefully. "Ways to improve performance while reducing fuel consumption and emissions." Jackson's expression sharpened. "Successfully? I've achieved a 22% efficiency increase in my test models." Maya gestured toward the motorcycle engine she'd been working on earlier. "That's partly why I restore these. They let me test my modifications in controlled environments." For the first time, Jackson approached her workbench, examining the disassembled Kawasaki with newfound interest. 22% is significant. Have you patented your work?" Maya laughed bitterly. "Patents require money, Mr. Thorne, money and connections I don't have." He turned to face her fully, his expression suddenly serious. "What if you did?" "What do you mean?" "Thorne Industries has an automotive division. We've been trying to develop exactly this type of efficiency technology for years, with limited success." He reached into his jacket and produced a business card. "I'm hosting a charity gala this Saturday at the Westfield Grand Hotel. Bring your designs and prototypes. I'll introduce you to my R&D director." Maya stared at the embossed card in disbelief. Opportunities like this didn't just fall into the laps of people like her. "Why would you do that?" "Because I'm not so arrogant that I can't recognize when I've been proven wrong," Jackson replied simply. "And because 22% efficiency improvement could revolutionize our industry." He paused. "Consider it my way of making amends for underestimating you." As his Ferrari disappeared into the night, Maya stood motionless in the garage doorway, his business card clutched in her hand like a winning lottery ticket. The encounter had lasted less than an hour, but she sensed that her life had just pivoted on its axis. Little did she know just how prophetic that feeling would prove to be. The next morning, Maya awoke in her tiny apartment to find her phone flooded with notifications. The $20,000 transfer to Bennett Automotive had processed overnight, and Joe had sent a series of increasingly excited messages asking what miracle she had performed to earn such a sum. She replied with a brief explanation, deliberately omitting Jackson's invitation to the gala. That part felt too fragile to share yet, like a wish that might dissolve if spoken aloud. Maya's one-bedroom apartment in Riverside, the working-class neighborhood across the bridge from downtown Westfield, was barely large enough for her drafting table, let alone the collection of engine parts and technical manuals that filled every available surface. She shared the space with her brother Liam when he wasn't staying at the community college dorms, a cramped arrangement they both endured with good humor. "Did I hear your phone blowing up at 6 a.m.? Liam asked, emerging from the pull-out couch that served as his bed during visits. At 19, he shared Maya's dark hair and analytical mind, though he had channeled his intelligence toward computer science rather than mechanical engineering. "Just work stuff," Maya replied, sliding a plate of toast toward him. "How's the programming class going?" "Boring," Liam admitted through a mouthful of toast. "The professor keeps covering basics I mastered in high school." He studied his sister's face. "You look different. Did something happen?" Maya hesitated. Liam was the one person she trusted implicitly, but voicing her encounter with Jackson Thorne still felt like tempting fate. "I fixed a Ferrari last night," she finally said. "The owner paid generously." Liam whistled. "How generously?" "Enough to cover Grandma's physical therapy for the next 3 months. His eyes widened. "Seriously? Who was this guy, a sheikh?" "Something like that." Maya glanced at her watch. "I've got to get to work. Will you check on Grandma this afternoon? Her new medication sometimes makes her dizzy." "Already planned to," Liam assured her. "I'll stay for dinner too." Maya grabbed her backpack, which contained her tablet and the portable drive storing. All her engine modification designs. Despite Jackson's invitation, she wasn't naive enough to believe that one chance encounter would change her life. Men like him made casual offers all the time, forgotten as soon as they were uttered. Still, as she walked the mile to Bennett Automotive, saving bus fare as she did every day, Maya couldn't help rehearsing how she would present her work if given the opportunity. Her innovations weren't just theoretical. She had real-world testing, data, prototype components, and detailed simulations proving their viability. The garage was unusually busy when she arrived, with Joe himself waiting by the entrance, a rare occurrence since he typically handled administrative work from his cramped office. "There she is," he announced as Maya approached, "the Ferrari Whisperer." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks as several of her co-workers looked up from their tasks. "It was just a loose heat shield, Joe. A loose heat shield that netted us." "20 grand, Joe countered, clapping her on the shoulder. "The richest client we've ever had, and you handled it perfectly." Maya hadn't mentioned Jackson's name to Joe, referring to him only as a businessman with a Ferrari, but she should have known better. In a city like Westfield, the super wealthy were instantly recognizable. "Do you know who that was?" Joe continued, his voice dropping to an excited whisper. "Jackson Thorne, the Jackson Thorne, tech billionaire, innovator of the decade, and he specifically asked for your contact information this morning." Maya froze. "He called here?" 20 minutes ago. Wanted to confirm you'd received his invitation to some fancy event." Joe's expression was a mixture of awe and confusion. "What did you do to that car?" "Install a flux capacitor." "I told you it was just a heat shield," Maya repeated, trying to sound casual while her mind raced. Jackson had followed up. He'd actually remembered his invitation, even bothered to confirm it. Perhaps the opportunity was real after all. Well, whatever it was, he was impressed enough to call personally. Joe handed her a slip of paper. "His assistant's number." You're supposed to call to arrange transportation to some gala on Saturday. Oh, the rest of the day passed in a blur as Maya moved mechanically through her assigned tasks. Oil changes, brake replacements, routine maintenance that required only a fraction of her attention. The slip of paper with the assistant's number burned in her pocket like a hot coal. During her lunch break, Maya retreated to the small storage room she'd converted into a personal workspace months ago. Here, surrounded by her tools and designs, she finally allowed herself to imagine what could happen if Jackson Thorne's interest was genuine. Her efficiency modifications could transform not just individual vehicles, but entire transportation systems. Reduced emissions, lower fuel costs, extended engine life. The implications were enormous, but so were the obstacles. She had no connections in the industry, no financial backing, no way to navigate the complex world of patents and manufacturing. And then there was the ever-present reality of her background. A first-generation American whose parents had died in a car accident when she was 18, leaving her to raise Liam and care for their ailing grandmother on her own. People like her didn't get invited into the rarefied world of tech billionaires and industry revolutionaries. They remained invisible, their innovations either stolen or buried, their potential never realized. The memory of Jackson's surprised respect when she'd proven him wrong flickered through her mind. Perhaps he was different from the wealthy clients who treated her like furniture. Or perhaps this was all an elaborate setup, a way to access her designs without proper compensation. Taking a deep breath, Maya pulled out her phone and dialed the assistant's number. A crisp, professional voice answered immediately. "Mr. Thorne's office." "This is Maya Chen," she said, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. "I was told to call regarding transportation to Saturday's event." "Ms. Chen, yes. Mr. Thorne mentioned you would be attending as his special guest. A car will collect you at 7 p.m. The dress code is formal. Do you have appropriate attire?" The blunt question highlighted a problem Maya hadn't even considered. Her wardrobe consisted primarily of jeans, t-shirts, and work coveralls. The nicest outfit she owned was the black pants and blouse she'd worn to her college graduation. "I'll manage something," she replied, mentally calculating whether she could afford even a second-hand formal dress. "That won't be necessary," the assistant said smoothly. "Mr. Thorne anticipated this might be an issue and has arranged for a stylist to meet you at Bergman's department store tomorrow at 5 p.m. Everything will be covered, of course." Maya's pride bristled at the implication that she needed charity, but pragmatism won out. If she was going to present her work to industry leaders, she needed to look the part. "Thank you," she said finally. "I'll be there." After ending the call, Maya sat motionless, the reality of what was happening finally sinking in. In 3 days, she would be attending a gala with some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the tech world. People who could help turn her designs into reality or steal them outright. The risk was substantial, but so was the potential reward. With proper backing, her modifications could reach the market within years rather than decades. The environmental impact alone justified the gamble. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Liam. "Grandma's doing great today. She says to bring home ice cream." The simple message grounded her, reminding her why she had developed her modifications in the first place, not for fame or fortune, but to create a cleaner, more sustainable world for the people she loved. For Liam, who deserved a future where his brilliance could flourish. For her grandmother, who had sacrificed so much to support them after their parents' death. With renewed determination, Maya returned to her locker and retrieved a small, weathered notebook, her original design journal, filled with sketches and calculations dating back to her undergraduate days. If she was going to present her work to Jackson Thorne and his R&D team, she would need to organize her research more professionally. than the chaotic collection of files and notes currently scattered across her tablet and workspace. As her shift ended, Joe called her into his office. The cramped space smelled perpetually of motor oil and the cheap cigars Joe sneaked when his wife wasn't around. "I'm giving you tomorrow and Saturday off," he announced without preamble. "Paid leave." Maya blinked in surprise. "Why?" "Because whatever's happening with you and Jackson Thorne could be big for all of us." Joe leaned forward, his expression uncharacteristically serious. "Listen, Maya, I've been in this business for 30 years. I know talent when I see it, and you've got more than anyone I've ever met. If Thorne is interested in your work, that could change everything, for you and for this garage." "I don't understand," Maya admitted. "How would it benefit the garage?" Joe smiled. "Think about it. If your designs take off, who's going to be your first choice for prototype testing? Who already has the facilities you've been using for years?" He gestured around them. "Bennett Automotive could become a development center rather than just a repair shop. Higher profile, better clients, more interesting work for everyone." Maya hadn't considered this angle. The possibility that her success could lift others alongside her was appealing in a way pure personal advancement wasn't. "Thanks, Joe," she said sincerely, "for the time off and for believing in me from the beginning." "Don't get sentimental on me," he grumbled, though his eyes crinkled with affection. "Just don't forget the little people when you're rich and famous." That night, as Maya meticulously organized her research for Saturday's presentation, Liam watched with increasing curiosity. "Are you going to tell me what's really going on?" he finally asked. "Because this doesn't look like just work stuff anymore." Maya hesitated, then decided her brother deserved the truth. She explained the encounter with Jackson, the invitation to the gala, the potential opportunity to present her designs to industry leaders. Liam listened with widening eyes. "Holy shit, Maya, this could be your big break. Or a complete disaster," she countered, voicing her lingering fears. "What if my designs aren't as revolutionary as I think? What if they're interested, but want to pay me a pittance while they make millions? What if it's all just some rich guy's idea of charity?" "Then you walk away," Liam said simply. "But you have to try. Your modifications work. I've seen the test data myself. You've achieved efficiency improvements that major companies with billion-dollar R&D budgets haven't managed." He grabbed her shoulders gently. "You deserve this chance, sis." His confidence bolstered her resolve. For years, Maya had downplayed her ambitions, focusing instead on immediate necessities, paying rent, keeping Liam in school, covering their grandmother's medical expenses. The luxury of dreaming bigger had seemed wasteful, even dangerous. But now, with opportunity knocking so loudly she couldn't ignore it, Maya allowed herself to imagine success. Not just financial security, but the validation of seeing her innovations implemented on a global scale. The potential environmental impact alone was staggering. A 22% efficiency improvement across even a fraction of the world's vehicles would mean significant reductions in fossil fuel consumption and emissions. The following day, Maya arrived at Bergman's department store, feeling distinctly out of place among the perfectly coiffed salespeople and wealthy shoppers. She had dressed in her best clothes, still woefully inadequate for the upscale establishment, and forced herself to walk confidently through the revolving doors, despite the security guard's suspicious glance. At the information desk, she gave her name, half expecting to be told there was no appointment. Instead, she was immediately escorted to a private suite on the top floor, where a stylish woman with a tape measure draped around her neck greeted. "Her name is Chen, welcome. I'm Vanessa, your stylist for today. Mr. Thorne indicated you'll be needing a complete ensemble for Saturday's gala." For the next 2 hours, Maya endured more primping and prodding than she'd experienced in her entire life. Dresses, shoes, jewelry, even lingerie were brought for her approval. Vanessa guided her choices with gentle but firm expertise, steering her away from overly conservative options toward more striking designs. "You have a natural elegance," Vanessa observed, as Maya tried on a midnight blue gown that transformed her angular frame into something almost regal. "We just need to highlight it." By the time they finished, Maya barely recognized the woman. In the mirror, the final selections, the blue gown, silver heels, subtle jewelry, and a small evening bag created a sophisticated image far removed from the grease-stained mechanic who had confronted Jackson Thorne in the garage. "Everything will be delivered to your address tomorrow afternoon," Vanessa informed her as they concluded, along with detailed instructions for hair and makeup. As Maya left Bergman's, she felt a complex mixture of emotions. Excitement about the opportunity ahead, anxiety about presenting her work, and beneath it all, a nagging discomfort at how easily money solved problems she had struggled with her entire adult life. The outfits she'd just selected without a second thought would have taken months of careful saving under normal circumstances. Was this how Jackson Thorne lived all the time? In a world where obstacles dissolved with the wave of a credit card, where doors opened automatically and people jumped to fulfill your every whim. The contrast with her own experience, fighting for every opportunity, working twice as hard for half the recognition, was stark. And yet, here she was, stepping into that world, if only temporarily. The question was whether she could maintain her identity, her values, her perspective, while navigating a system designed to exclude people like her. As she walked home through the gathering dusk, Maya made a promise to herself. No matter what happened at the gala, no matter what opportunities might arise from her meeting with Jackson Thorne, she would remember where she came from. She would remain grounded in the reality of Riverside, of Bennett Automotive, of the small apartment where her brother and grandmother waited. Because ultimately it wasn't just about succeeding, it was about succeeding on her own terms. Saturday evening arrived with a crisp autumn chill that belied the warmth of anticipation, coursing through Maya as she stood before her bathroom mirror. The delivered gown fit perfectly, cascading in midnight blue waves that transformed her usually practical silhouette into something elegant and assured. She had followed Vanessa's detailed instructions for hair and makeup, creating a sophisticated look that enhanced rather than masked her natural features. A knock at the apartment door startled her from self-inspection. "You look like a movie star," Liam declared as she emerged from the bathroom. His eyes widened in appreciation. "Thorne Industries won't know what hit them." "I feel ridiculous," Maya admitted, tugging self-consciously at the gown's neckline, "like I'm playing dress-up." "That's imposter syndrome talking," her grandmother called from her recliner, where she sat watching with misty eyes. At 73, Chen maintained the sharp mind and forthright manner that had helped her raise 2 grandchildren after their parents' accident. "You belong in that dress just as much as you belong in those coveralls at the garage." Before Maya could respond, her phone chimed with a notification. "The car is downstairs," she said, her voice suddenly tight with anxiety. Liam handed her the slim portfolio containing her most crucial design documents. "Remember, these are just copies. We have everything backed up on 3 different drives." The precaution had been his idea. Protection against the possibility that someone might attempt to steal her work. Maya had initially resisted, feeling paranoid, but eventually agreed it was prudent given the potential value of her innovations. "I probably won't even get 5 minutes to present these," she reminded him, tucking the portfolio into her evening bag. "Then make those 5 minutes count," her grandmother advised, rising shakily to embrace her. "You've worked too hard to be overlooked now." The sleek black car waiting outside their modest apartment building seemed comically out of place among the rusted sedans and practical hatchbacks that lined their street. The driver, a professionally blank-faced man in a dark suit, opened the door for Maya with a respectful nod. Ms. Chen, Mr. Thorne sends his apologies that he couldn't collect. You personally. He's been detained at the venue with some last-minute arrangements. The interior of the vehicle was luxurious in a restrained way. Buttery leather seats, subtle lighting, and absolute silence once the door closed. As they glided through the streets of Riverside toward the gleaming towers of downtown Westfield, Maya gazed out at the familiar neighborhood transformed by evening shadows. Neon signs from convenience stores and laundromats cast colorful reflections on rain-slicked sidewalks. Workers trudged home from late shifts, shoulders hunched against the chill. This was her world, practical, resilient, authentic. The car crossed the Westfield Bridge, and the cityscape transformed dramatically. Gleaming skyscrapers replaced modest brick buildings. Fashionable pedestrians strolled past designer boutiques and Michelin-starred restaurants. Here, everything seemed polished to a high shine, as if the very air was filtered to remove imperfections. The Westfield Grand Hotel rose like a gleaming spire in the heart of the financial district, its facade illuminated by tasteful lighting that highlighted its Art Deco details. A line of luxury vehicles disgorged passengers at the entrance. Women in designer gowns, men in impeccable tuxedos, all radiating the easy confidence of those born to privilege. Maya's driver bypassed the main entrance, instead pulling around to a private access point. Mr. Thorne thought you might prefer a more discreet arrival, he explained as he opened her door. A wave of gratitude washed over Maya. It was a small consideration, but a thoughtful one, sparing her the intimidating gauntlet of the red carpet and the curious stares that would inevitably follow a newcomer. A hotel staff member escorted her through elegant corridors to an elevator reserved for VIP guests. Mr. Thorne is greeting guests in the grand ballroom, the young woman explained as they ascended. He asked to be notified immediately upon your arrival. The elevator doors opened directly into a breathtaking space. The grand ballroom lived up to its name, with soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and walls of windows showcasing panoramic views of the city skyline. At least 300 people circulated through the room, their conversations creating a sophisticated hum beneath the gentle strains of a live string quartet. Maya hesitated at the threshold, suddenly overwhelmed by the opulence and the realization that she knew no one in this rarefied crowd. Her confidence wavered as she scanned the room for Jackson's familiar face. Ms. Chen. She turned to find a striking woman in her 40s, regarding her with open curiosity. I'm Eliza Mercer, Jackson's chief of staff. He asked me to look after you until he can break free from his hosting duties. Her handshake was firm, her smile genuine. It's a pleasure to meet you. Jackson has mentioned your engineering innovations several times since your encounter. Relief flooded through Maya. At this confirmation that her invitation wasn't merely a whim quickly forgotten. Thank you for meeting me. This is all a bit overwhelming, Eliza supplied with an understanding smile. These events always are, even for those of us who attend them regularly. Come, let me get you a drink and introduce you to some people who will appreciate your work far more than the socialites monopolizing Jackson at the moment. Over the next hour, Maya found herself guided through the glittering crowd with expert precision. Eliza introduced her to key figures from Thorne Industries' research division, along with select partners from related technology sectors. To Maya's surprise, these accomplished scientists and engineers engaged with her as a peer rather than an outsider, asking insightful questions about her background and expressing genuine interest when she cautiously mentioned her efficiency modifications. Combustion engines are still the backbone of global transportation infrastructure, remarked Dr. Samir Patel, head of sustainable technologies at Thorne Industries. Even modest efficiency improvements can have massive environmental impact when implemented at scale. 22% is hardly modest, Maya pointed out. warming to the subject that had consumed her research for years, especially when the modifications can be retrofitted to existing engines, not just incorporated into new designs. Dr. Patel's eyebrows rose. Retrofitting capability would dramatically accelerate adoption. How complex is the conversion process? Maya was about to elaborate when she felt a presence at her shoulder. Jackson Thorne had materialized beside her, looking even more impressive in formal attire than he had in his business suit. Up close, she noticed details she'd missed during their garage encounter. The intelligent intensity of his gaze, the faint lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he smiled more often than his public persona indicated. "I see you've met our brilliant Dr. Patel," Jackson observed, nodding to the older scientist. "Has he tried to recruit you yet?" "We were discussing retrofitting possibilities," Dr. Patel replied. "Ms. Chen's approach is quite innovative." "So I gathered from our brief conversation." Jackson turned his full attention to Maya. "You look transformative, Ms. Chen. Not that your work coveralls weren't charming in their own way." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks at the compliment, but maintained her composure. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Thorne, and for the styling assistance. I wouldn't have known where to begin." "The dress merely complements what was already there," he replied smoothly. "And please, call me Jackson. Mr. Thorne makes me feel like my father." He gestured toward a quieter corner of the ballroom. "If you'll excuse us, Dr. Patel, I'd like to steal Ms. Chen for a few minutes to discuss her work more privately." As they moved through the crowd, Maya noticed the subtle deference shown to Jackson, conversations pausing as they passed, admiring, glances following their progress, the occasional bold attempt to intercept them deftly sidestepped with practiced charm. "You navigate this world so effortlessly," she observed, as they reached a relatively secluded alcove with a spectacular view of the illuminated city below. "Practice," Jackson replied with a wry smile. "I grew up attending functions like this. My father believed in early exposure to the business social circuit." He studied her for a moment. "You seem to be handling it remarkably well for a first-timer." "Eliza has been very helpful," Maya acknowledged. "Though I'm still processing the fact that I just had a conversation about thermodynamic efficiency with the woman who won the Nobel Prize in physics last year." Jackson laughed. "Dr. Khatri is brilliant, but utterly unpretentious. She said you held your own impressively in that discussion." Maya's eyes widened. "She said that, indeed, but I didn't bring you here just to network. Impressive as you clearly are at it." Jackson's expression turned more serious. "I've arranged for you to present your modifications to our core R&D team tomorrow morning. More intimate setting, proper, and technical equipment, no distractions." Maya blinked in surprise. "Tomorrow? I thought perhaps we might schedule something for next week." "I don't believe in unnecessary delays," Jackson stated matter-of-factly. "You have designs ready? To present, we have people ready to evaluate them. Why wait?" The directness was both intimidating and refreshing. "All right," Maya agreed, mentally reviewing her prepared materials. "What time and where?" 10 a.m. at Thorne Tower. My driver will collect you." Jackson hesitated, then added, "I should warn you that our head of automotive engineering, Victor Reynolds, can be challenging. He's brilliant but traditional in his approach. Don't let him intimidate you." Before Maya could respond, a distinguished older gentleman approached, clearly intent on speaking with Jackson. With an apologetic smile, Jackson turned to greet the newcomer, smoothly introducing Maya before their conversation inevitably shifted to business matters beyond her knowledge. Taking the opportunity to step away, Maya found herself wandering toward the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the glittering cityscape. From this height, Westfield was transformed into a magical landscape of lights and geometry, the harsh realities of its economic disparities softened by distance and darkness. "Beautiful view, isn't it?" remarked a cultured female voice beside her. Maya turned to find a striking blonde woman in a designer gown regarding her with cool assessment. Though they hadn't been introduced, Maya immediately recognized Caroline Hoffman, the telecommunications heiress whose engagement to Jackson had been announced in business publications just 2 months earlier. "It is," Maya agreed, keeping her tone neutral despite the sudden tension she felt. "The city looks quite different from up here." "Everything looks different from a sufficient distance," Caroline observed. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Including people. You've made quite an impression on Jackson, the mysterious mechanic with revolutionary designs." The statement hung between them, neither quite a compliment nor an accusation. Maya chose her response carefully. "Mr. Thorne has been generous with his time and resources. I'm grateful for the opportunity to present my work to his team." Caroline took a delicate sip of champagne. "Jackson collects interesting people the way others collect art. He's always had an eye for undiscovered talent." The slight pause suggested a less charitable description had been considered and discarded, particularly female talent. The implication was unmistakable. Maya felt a flash of indignation, quickly suppressed. "My interest is strictly professional, Ms. Hoffman. I have engine modifications that might benefit Thorne Industries. Nothing more." "Of course," Caroline replied smoothly, "just as my fiancé's interest is purely business-oriented. I simply thought you should understand the pattern. Jackson discovers someone promising from an unconventional background, champions them enthusiastically, then moves on once the novelty fades." She shrugged elegantly. "No harm done, usually. The protégés typically receive enough benefit from his temporary attention to advance their careers significantly." Before Maya could formulate a response, Eliza Mercer materialized at her side. "There you are, Maya. Jackson was looking for you." Her pointed glance at Caroline conveyed volumes. "Caroline, I believe your father is searching for you. Something about the Collins merger?" After Caroline glided away, Eliza turned to Maya with an apologetic expression. "I should have warned you about her. She's feeling threatened, though. She'd rather die than admit it." "By me?" Maya asked incredulously. "I'm just here about my engine designs." Eliza's smile was knowing. "Caroline is used to being the most interesting woman in Jackson's orbit. You, brilliant, self-made, and unimpressed by wealth, represent something entirely different." She patted Maya's arm reassuringly. "Don't let her rattle you. Jackson's interest in your work is genuine." The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of introductions, conversations, and observations. Maya found herself increasingly at ease among the brilliant minds Jackson continued to steer her toward, while maintaining a careful distance from the purely social elite who dominated the center of the ballroom. By midnight, as the event began winding down, Maya had collected business cards from 3 department heads at Thorne Industries, received an impromptu job offer from a competing tech firm, and engaged in a spirited debate about ceramic engine components with a materials scientist whose work she had studied in college. "Successful evening?" Jackson asked, appearing beside her as the crowd thinned. "Beyond anything I could have imagined," Maya admitted. "Thank you for including me." "The thanks should go the other way," he replied. "You've brought a refreshing perspective to what might otherwise have been another predictable social obligation." He glanced at his watch. "My driver will take you home whenever you're ready, and remember 10 o'clock tomorrow at Thorne Tower." As the sleek car carried her back to Riverside, Maya felt suspended between 2 worlds, the glittering realm of innovation and influence she had just glimpsed, and the familiar reality of her hard-scrabble existence. Caroline's warning echoed in her mind, mingling with the genuine enthusiasm she'd encountered from Jackson's research team. Was she simply a novelty, destined to be championed briefly, then forgotten? Or had she finally found the pathway to implement the innovation she'd been perfecting in obscurity for years? The car turned onto her street, where the harsh reality of her neighborhood provided a stark contrast to the evening's glamour. A group of teenagers huddled on the corner despite the late hour. The building's security door was propped open with a brick, and the flickering streetlight cast ominous shadows across the cracked sidewalk. "Would you like me to escort you to your door, Ms. Chen?" the driver offered, clearly uncomfortable with the surroundings. "Thank you, but I'll be fine," Maya assured him. "I've lived here for years." As she climbed the 4 flights to her apartment, the elevator perpetually out of service, Maya made a decision. If tomorrow's presentation led to a genuine opportunity with Thorn Industries, she would use it not just to advance her own career, but to create something transformative. Her modifications could reduce emissions, improve efficiency, and potentially make transportation more affordable for communities like Riverside. That was a legacy worth pursuing, regardless of whether Jackson Thorne's interest proved temporary or lasting. Liam was still awake when she entered the apartment, his laptop balanced precariously on his knees as he worked on coding assignments. He looked up eagerly as she entered. "How was it? Did you meet anyone important? Did Thorne like your designs?" Maya kicked off the uncomfortable silver heels with a sigh of relief. "It was educational," she said carefully. "I'm presenting formally to their R&D team tomorrow morning." Liam's eyes widened. "That's huge, Maya. They're not just humoring you, they're taking this seriously." "Maybe," she cautioned, unwilling to let hope run too far ahead of reality. "Or maybe they're just being thorough before they reject everything." "Always the pessimist," Liam chided gently. "When will you accept that you've created something genuinely valuable?" Maya sank onto the worn sofa beside him, the elegant gown incongruous against the shabby furniture. "I'll believe it when I see it implemented in actual vehicles, making actual differences in emissions and efficiency." "Well, step 1 is tomorrow," Liam reminded her. "Want to practice your presentation on me? I promise to ask inappropriately technical questions to prepare you for the worst." Despite her exhaustion, Maya smiled gratefully. "You're the best." "You know that?" "I know," he agreed cheerfully. "That's why you're going to name your first patented invention after me." They spent the next hour refining her presentation, with Liam playing devil's advocate and helping her anticipate potential challenges to her methodology. When they finally called it a night, Maya felt more prepared and confident than she had all evening, despite Caroline's unsettling insinuations. Morning arrived with grey skies and a steady drizzle that matched Maya's nervous mood. She dressed carefully in the one professional outfit she owned, black pants and a navy blazer purchased for job interviews after graduation. The clothes felt stiff and unfamiliar after years of practical work attire, but they projected the competence she needed to convey. Her grandmother watched her preparations with quiet pride. "Your parents would be so proud today," she said softly. "Your father especially. He always believed you would do something important." The simple words pierced Maya's practiced composure. Her father had been an auto mechanic with an intuitive understanding of engines that he'd passed on to his daughter during countless hours in his small repair shop. His death had ended not just his life, but his dream of opening his own garage where he could implement the improvements he was constantly tinkering with. "I'm just presenting some ideas," Maya demurred. "They might not go anywhere." "They will," her grandmother stated with absolute certainty, "because you won't stop until they do." The sleek car arrived precisely at 9:30, giving them ample time to navigate morning traffic to Thorne Tower, a striking glass and steel structure that housed the headquarters of Jackson's sprawling tech empire. Unlike the previous evening's discreet side entrance, this time Maya was escorted through the imposing main lobby, with its 3-story atrium and massive sculpture of interlocking gears that symbolized the company's engineering roots. Eliza, met her at the executive elevator, her professional demeanor firmly in place despite the early hour. "The team is gathering in the main conference room," she explained, as they ascended to the 50th floor. "Jackson will join shortly. He's finishing a call with our Tokyo office." The conference room took Maya's breath away, not with opulence, but with the state-of-the-art technology seamlessly integrated into its design. One wall was entirely comprised of high-resolution screens. The oval table featured embedded displays at each seat, and a holographic projection system dominated the center of the space. "You can connect your materials here," Eliza indicated a sophisticated console. "The system will adapt to whatever format you're using." As Maya set up her presentation, executives began filing into the room, mostly men in their 40s and 50s, with a sprinkling of younger faces and a few women among them. They regarded her with expressions ranging from curious to skeptical to openly hostile. A tall, silver-haired man entered last, his bearing suggesting authority even before introductions. "Victor Reynolds," he announced curtly, extending a hand with obvious reluctance. "Head of Automotive Engineering. I understand you believe you've developed efficiency modifications that have eluded our research division for years." The challenge in his tone was unmistakable. This, Maya realized, must be the challenging executive Jackson had warned her about. "I wouldn't presume to make such a claim," she replied evenly. "I've simply approached the problem from a different perspective, which has yielded promising results in my testing." Reynolds raised a skeptical eyebrow, but said nothing more as he took his seat at the table. At precisely 10 a.m., Jackson strode into the room, bringing with him an energy that transformed the atmosphere. "Good morning, everyone," he greeted, taking a seat directly across from Maya. "Thank you for adjusting your schedules for this presentation. I believe you'll find Ms. Chen's work warrants your full attention." With that endorsement hanging in the air, Maya took a deep breath and began. For the next 30 minutes, she guided the assembled executives through her research, beginning with the theoretical foundations, progressing to her innovative modifications to traditional combustion engine design, and concluding with the documented efficiency improvements her prototypes had demonstrated. Throughout her presentation, she maintained the perfect balance between technical detail and accessibility, illustrating complex concepts with clear visual aids and practical examples. The nervousness she had felt initially dissipated as she immersed herself in the subject she knew intimately. When she concluded, the room remained silent for several seconds, a pause that might have been unnerving had Maya not recognized the thoughtful consideration in many of the executives' expressions. "Questions?" Jackson prompted, breaking the silence. The floodgates opened. For the next 45 minutes, Maya fielded increasingly complex technical inquiries, challenges to her methodology, and probing questions about implementation feasibility. To her surprise, she found herself energized rather than intimidated by the rigorous examination. Only Victor Reynolds remained conspicuously silent, observing the proceedings with an inscrutable expression. Finally, as the discussion began winding down, he leaned forward. "Ms. Chen," he began, his tone deceptively casual, "your presentation is impressive, I'll grant you that, but I have one fundamental question." He paused, eyes narrowing slightly. "Why should we believe that a garage mechanic has succeeded where teams of PhDs with multi-million-dollar research budgets have failed?" The room went still. The challenge wasn't just to Maya's designs, but to her very credibility. She met his gaze steadily. For the same reason that Jackson Thorne built his first revolutionary circuit board in a dorm room, while established tech giants missed the potential of his approach. Her voice remained calm but firm. "Innovation doesn't always correlate with Resources or credentials, Mr. Reynolds. Sometimes it emerges from necessity and different perspectives. The room held its collective breath, waiting for Reynolds' reaction. For a long moment, he simply stared at Maya, his expression unreadable. Then unexpectedly he smiled, a small, reluctant quirk of his mouth. "Well answered, Ms. Chen," he acknowledged. "Though you should know that comparing yourself to Jackson is a bold move in this building." "Not if it's accurate," Jackson interjected smoothly. He stood, effectively concluding the session. "Thank you all for your time. Ms. Chen will be available for follow-up questions through my office. I expect preliminary feasibility assessments on my desk by Wednesday." As the executives filed out, many paused to exchange cards with Maya or offer brief comments on specific aspects of her presentation. Even Reynolds gave her a considering nod before departing. When the room had emptied, except for Jackson and Eliza, Maya finally allowed herself to exhale fully. That was intense. "It was exceptional," Jackson corrected. "You held your own against some of the sharpest minds in the industry. Even Victor was impressed, though he'd rather swallow glass than admit it outright." "What happens now?" Maya asked, gathering her materials. Jackson exchanged a glance with Eliza. "Now," he said, "we discuss turning your innovations into reality. But first, lunch. Defending revolutionary ideas against skeptical executives works up an appetite, I've found." As they exited the conference room, Maya caught sight of her reflection. In the glass wall, still recognizably herself, yet somehow transformed by the morning's events. For the first time, she allowed herself to fully consider the possibility that her life was about to change dramatically. What remained to be seen was whether that change would bring the impact she had always dreamed of creating, or extract a price she wasn't prepared to pay. Lunch took place in Jackson's private dining room, a serene space 50 floors above the city, with panoramic views currently obscured by sheets of rain. The understated elegance of the room, with its live-edge wooden table and minimalist decor, contrasted sharply with the opulence of the previous night's gala. "I prefer to discuss important matters in environments that allow for clear thinking," Jackson explained, noticing Maya's appreciation of the space. "Excessive luxury tends to cloud judgment." The meal was similarly straightforward. Expertly prepared but uncomplicated dishes served by a single discreet attendant who vanished after ensuring they had everything they needed. "Your presentation was genuinely impressive," Jackson began, once they were alone, "even more so considering your limited resources." "Limited resources can spark creativity," Maya replied, remembering the countless nights she'd spent adapting consumer-grade tools to perform specialized functions she couldn't afford proper equipment for. "When you can't buy solutions, you have to invent them." Jackson's smile suggested this resonated with his own experience. True innovation often emerges from constraint. He leaned forward slightly. "But constraints can also prevent great ideas from reaching their potential. That's where Thorn Industries comes in." For the next hour, Jackson outlined a vision that made Maya's breath catch. He proposed not merely licensing her designs, but establishing an entire division dedicated to implementing her efficiency modifications across multiple vehicle categories, from consumer automobiles to industrial equipment. "We would start with a proof of concept, retrofitting a fleet of delivery vehicles for a major logistics company," he explained. "Demonstrate the efficiency improvements in real-world conditions, gather comprehensive data, then scale up rapidly." The scale of his proposal was staggering. "This would require significant investment," Maya observed cautiously. "Approximately $30 million for the initial phase," Jackson confirmed without hesitation, "with potential global implementation representing billions in long-term revenue and measurable environmental impact." Maya's mind raced with possibilities. The environmental benefits alone were compelling. Her modifications implemented at scale could significantly reduce carbon emissions from the transportation sector, but the financial implications were equally dizzying. If Jackson's projections were accurate, her innovations could generate enormous wealth. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked, needing absolute clarity. "A partnership," Jackson stated. Simply, Thorn Industries provides the capital, manufacturing capabilities, and market access. You provide the intellectual property and technical expertise. We establish a new subsidiary, Chen Efficiency Systems, with you as Chief Technology Officer and majority stakeholder. Maya nearly choked on her water. Majority stakeholder? 70% ownership, Jackson confirmed. These are your innovations, Maya. We're simply providing the platform to implement them globally. The generosity of the offer was unprecedented. Most corporations would have attempted to acquire her intellectual property outright for a fraction of its potential value. "Why would you do this?" she asked bluntly. "You could easily offer me a standard licensing deal or employment contract." Jackson considered her question seriously. 3 reasons. First, pragmatism. You're more likely to continue innovating if properly incentivized as an owner rather than an employee. Second, fairness. Revolutionary ideas deserve revolutionary compensation. And third, he paused, his expression softening slightly, "because I recognize in you the same hunger that drove me when I was starting out. The desire not just to succeed, but to create meaningful change." The sincerity in his voice was persuasive, but Maya remained cautious. Caroline's warning echoed in her mind. Jackson discovers someone promising from an unconventional background, champions them enthusiastically, then moves on once the novelty fades. "I'd need to have any agreement reviewed by an attorney," she said finally. "I would expect nothing less," Jackson replied, seemingly pleased by her prudence. "In fact, I've taken the liberty of arranging a meeting for you with Diana Chen. No relation, I assume. One of the city's top intellectual property attorneys. She's independent, has no ties to Thorn Industries, and specializes in protecting inventors in deals with large corporations." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You arranged for an attorney to help me negotiate against you?" "I arranged for you to have proper representation to ensure any agreement we reach is equitable and sustainable," he corrected. "One-sided deals inevitably collapse, and I'm interested in building something lasting." As their lunch concluded, Jackson handed Maya a sleek tablet. "This contains the preliminary proposal, financial projections, and implementation timeline. Take it home. Review it with your attorney. Discuss it with your family. This isn't a decision to rush." The tablet felt impossibly heavy in Maya's hands, weighted with potential and responsibility. "How long do I have to decide?" "The opportunity isn't going to evaporate overnight," Jackson assured her, "but the sooner we begin, the sooner your innovations can start making a difference." On the ride back to Riverside, Maya found herself staring at the tablet as if it might suddenly vanish, a magical artifact accidentally delivered to the wrong person. The numbers it contained were transformative, projections showing how her modifications could reduce fuel consumption by millions of gallons annually, cut emissions by thousands of tons, and generate profits substantial enough to change her family's circumstances permanently. Rain still fell steadily as the car pulled up to her apartment building. This time, the driver insisted on escorting her to the entrance with an umbrella. As they approached, Maya noticed a familiar figure huddled beneath the building's small awning, Liam, clearly waiting anxiously for her return. "How did it go?" he demanded as soon as she was within earshot. His eyes widened at her expression. "That well?" Inside the apartment, with their grandmother listening intently, Maya outlined Jackson's proposal in detail, occasionally referencing figures from the tablet. As she spoke, the enormity of the opportunity became even clearer. This wasn't merely a business deal. It was a chance to implement changes that could help address climate challenges while simultaneously lifting her family from financial precarity. "This is incredible," Liam breathed when she finished. "Everything you've worked for, all in one perfect package." "It seems too perfect," Maya admitted, voicing her lingering skepticism. "Why would he offer such generous terms when he holds all the leverage? He knows I don't have the resources to develop this independently." "Perhaps because he recognizes genuine value," her grandmother suggested. "Not everyone with wealth is corrupt, Maya. Some understand that true innovation deserves proper recognition. Or maybe he has ulterior motives," Liam countered, protective instincts flaring. "His engagement to Caroline Hoffman connects two of the wealthiest families in the country. Why would he risk that for a business partnership with an unknown engineer?" Maya hadn't mentioned Caroline's warning, but Liam's concerns echoed her own unspoken thoughts. The timing was suspicious, Jackson's sudden interest in her innovations coinciding with his recent engagement announcement. "The attorney meeting is tomorrow," she said finally. "I'll get professional advice before making any decisions." That evening, after Liam and her grandmother had gone to bed, Maya sat alone at her drafting table, reviewing the detailed proposal. The technical aspects were impeccable. Jackson's team had clearly studied her modifications thoroughly and developed an implementation plan that addressed potential challenges she hadn't even considered. The financial structure was equally impressive. Beyond the ownership stake, the proposal included provisions for ongoing royalties, performance bonuses tied to efficiency benchmarks, and a personal signing bonus substantial enough to immediately transform her family's circumstances. Yet doubt lingered. Why her? Why now? And what was Jackson Thorne really seeking from this partnership? Sleep proved elusive as these questions circled in her mind. Around midnight, Maya gave up trying and instead began sketching refinements to her original designs, improvements she'd conceptualized but never had the resources to prototype. If Jackson's offer was genuine, these enhancements could increase efficiency even further. By dawn, her drafting table was covered with detailed technical drawings and calculation sheets. The creative surge had cleared her mind somewhat, allowing her to approach the upcoming attorney meeting with greater clarity. Whatever Jackson's motivations might be, her innovations were real and valuable. She deserved proper compensation and recognition for her work. Diana Chen's law office occupied the 15th floor of a mid-century building in Westfield's legal district, a space that projected professional competence without ostentation. The attorney herself matched her surroundings, a woman in her 50s, with the precise bob and shrewd eyes that evaluated Maya carefully. "Mr. Thorne mentioned you might be skeptical about his proposal," she began after preliminary introductions. "That's healthy. Inventors who don't protect their intellectual property often regret it later." Over the next 3 hours, Diana methodically dissected every aspect of Jackson's proposal, highlighting potential concerns and suggesting modifications to strengthen Maya's position. To Maya's surprise, many of these suggestions aligned with notes Jackson himself had included, areas where he acknowledged the agreement could be more equitable. "In my 20 years of practice, I've never seen a large corporation offer terms this favorable to an individual inventor," Diana admitted as they approached the end of their session, "especially one without established credentials or competing offers." "Does that make you suspicious?" Maya asked directly. Diana considered the question. "It's unusual, certainly, but Jackson Thorne has a history of unconventional business decisions that initially appear questionable, but ultimately prove prescient." She tapped the document thoughtfully. "With the modifications we've discussed, this agreement would provide extraordinary protection for your interests. If you're concerned about hidden agendas, we can add clauses regarding corporate governance and succession planning." By the time Maya left Diana's office, Her confidence had solidified. The attorney had identified several areas requiring strengthening, but had ultimately confirmed that Jackson's offer was exceptionally favorable. If he accepted the proposed modifications, and Diana believed he would, Maya would retain control of her intellectual property while gaining the resources to implement it globally. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the city washed clean in afternoon sunlight. Rather than calling for a car, Maya decided to walk for a while, needing physical movement to process the morning's revelations. Her path took her through the downtown financial district, where Thorn Tower rose like a gleaming exclamation point among the city's skyline. What would it be like to work there regularly? To have access to cutting-edge research facilities and brilliant colleagues? To see her name on a corporate directory and business cards? The possibility both excited and unnerved her. She had spent years defining herself in opposition to such institutions, the outsider who succeeded despite being excluded from their resources and opportunities. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jackson. "How did your meeting with Diana go?" Maya hesitated before responding truthfully. She identified several areas for strengthening, but overall confirmed the proposal is exceptionally favorable. "She seems surprised by your generosity." His reply came quickly. "Good advice is worth listening to. Send me the suggested modifications when you're ready. I suspect most will be acceptable." The easy acceptance reinforced Maya's growing belief that Jackson's offer might be genuine. Still, caution prevented her from committing immediately. She needed time to consider all implications, personal as well as professional. Continuing her walk, Maya found herself in a neighborhood of luxury boutiques and exclusive restaurants. Through one window, she glimpsed Caroline Hoffman seated at a table with an older couple who resembled her enough to likely be her parents. The scene looked tense, with Caroline gesturing emphatically while her father frowned. Maya quickened her pace, not wanting to be spotted, but the brief glimpse reinforced her awareness of the complex social dynamics surrounding Jackson. Whatever his business interest in her innovations, his personal life was entangled with powerful families and expectations she couldn't begin to comprehend. By the time she reached Bennett Automotive, drawn there almost unconsciously, Maya had reached a decision. She would proceed with the partnership, provided Jackson accepted Diana's modifications, but would maintain clear boundaries between business and personal relationships. Joe looked up in surprise as she entered the garage. "Didn't expect to see you today. Figured you'd be busy with your fancy new friends." The slight edge in his tone caught Maya off guard. "They're potential business partners, not friends," she corrected, "and I wanted to update you on what's happening." Over the next hour, as Maya helped with routine maintenance jobs out of habit, she explained the developing partnership with Thorn Industries. Joe's initial skepticism gradually transformed into cautious enthusiasm as he recognized the potential benefits, not just for Maya, but for the garage itself if it became a development site for prototype testing. "You really think this billionaire is on the level?" Joe asked finally, wiping grease from his hands. "No hidden agenda?" "I think his business interest is genuine," Maya replied carefully. "My innovations align with Thorn Industries' strategic goals in sustainable technology. As for personal motives," she shrugged, "those matter less if the legal protections are solid." Joe nodded slowly. "Smart approach. Just be careful, Maya. People like that live in a different world, different rules." "I know," she assured him. "I'm keeping my eyes open." That evening, after consulting with Liam and her grandmother, Maya emailed the modified agreement to Jackson, expecting days of negotiation to follow. To her surprise, his response came within hours, accepting nearly all of Diana's suggested changes with only minor adjustments to implementation timelines. If these terms are acceptable, we can sign tomorrow and announce the partnership next week, his message concluded. Chen Efficiency Systems could begin operations by the end of the month. The speed was dizzying but exhilarating. After years of painstaking progress constrained by limited resources, Maya's innovations could suddenly be fast-tracked toward global implementation. After confirming with Diana that Jackson's counter-proposal maintained all critical protections, Maya sent her acceptance. They scheduled the signing for the following afternoon at Thorn Tower. "You should buy something nice to wear," her grandmother suggested when Maya shared the news. "Something that makes you feel powerful." "Clothes don't make me powerful," Maya objected. "My ideas do." "True," her grandmother agreed with a knowing smile, "but perception matters in their world. Dress for the position you're accepting, Chief Technology Officer of a multi-million-dollar enterprise." Recognizing the wisdom in this advice, Maya used a portion of her savings to purchase a well-tailored pantsuit from a department store. Nothing extravagant, but professional and confidence-inspiring. The investment felt symbolic, marking her transition from struggling mechanic to technology executive. The signing ceremony was smaller than Maya had anticipated. Just Jackson, Eliza, Victor Reynolds, 2 corporate attorneys, and a photographer. To document the occasion, the boardroom's atmosphere was serious but optimistic as they reviewed the final documents together. "Once you sign, we'll issue a press release announcing the partnership," Jackson explained. "Expect significant media attention. Your story, combined with the environmental impact of your innovations, makes for compelling coverage." Maya hadn't considered this aspect, the public exposure that would inevitably accompany such an announcement. The thought of journalists scrutinizing her background, perhaps discovering her modest apartment and family circumstances, was momentarily unsettling. As if reading her thoughts, Jackson added, "Our PR team will coordinate with you on any personal details included in releases. Your privacy will be respected." With that reassurance, Maya signed her name to the documents that would transform her life. The moment lacked Hollywood dramatics, no champagne corks popping, no spontaneous applause, just the quiet rustling of papers and the click of the photographer's camera. Yet Maya felt the weight of the moment, the invisible line being crossed between her past and future. "Congratulations, Miss Chen," Victor Reynolds said formally, offering his hand. "Welcome to Thorn Industries. I look forward to seeing your innovations implemented." The acknowledgement from the previously skeptical executive confirmed that her designs had genuinely impressed even the most traditional elements within the company. This wasn't charity or Jackson's personal project. Her work had earned respect on its technical merits. As they concluded the formalities, Jackson checked his watch. "I have a board meeting in 15 minutes. Eliza will show you to your new office and handle the immediate next steps." He shook Maya's hand warmly. "We'll schedule a proper celebration once things are underway." Maya's new office, a spacious corner space on the R&D floor with floor-to-ceiling windows and state-of-the-art equipment, reinforced the reality of her changed circumstances. As Eliza guided her through initial administrative processes, Maya felt a growing certainty that she had made the right decision, despite her lingering questions about Jackson's motivations. "Your team will start assembling next week," Eliza explained, showing Maya the organizational chart for Chen Efficiency Systems. "We've identified several engineers with relevant experience who are eager to join. You'll have final approval on all hires, of course." The prospect of leading a research team was both intimidating and exhilarating. Maya had always worked alone, partly from necessity and partly from habit. Collaborating with other engineers would require adjustment, but offered tremendous potential for accelerating and expanding her innovations. "We've also arranged temporary executive housing for you," Eliza continued, handing Maya an electronic key card. A corporate apartment close to headquarters while you decide on permanent living arrangements. This caught Maya off guard. I haven't decided to move yet. Eliza's expression remained professionally neutral. Of course, the apartment is available. If you want it, no pressure. Many executives find the commute from Riverside challenging, especially with the irregular hours startup divisions often require. The comment wasn't wrong. Maya's neighborhood was a solid 45-minute commute from Thorn Tower in good traffic. Still, the assumption that she would immediately relocate raised questions about how much her life would need to change to accommodate her new role. As the day concluded, Maya found herself back in the executive elevator, descended to the lobby, and stepped into the evening air, feeling simultaneously empowered and disoriented. In a single day, she had signed papers worth millions, been assigned an office larger than her entire apartment, and been offered luxury housing as a casual perk. How would these changes affect her relationship with Liam and her grandmother, with Joe and her colleagues at Bennett Automotive, with the community that had shaped her identity and values? On impulse, instead of calling for a car, Maya walked to the nearby transit station and boarded the public train heading toward Riverside. Among the after-work crowd of service workers, students and office staff, she found a centering familiarity. These were her people, practical, hard-working, navigating systems not designed with their needs in mind. As the train crossed the bridge dividing downtown from Riverside, Maya made a silent commitment to herself. She would embrace the opportunities this partnership offered, but without surrendering the perspective her background had given her. Her innovations would serve not just corporate interests, but communities like Riverside, where small efficiency improvements could make meaningful differences in tight household budgets. Whatever Jackson Thorne's true motivations might be, business strategy, personal interest, or something more complex, Maya would ensure that her work remained aligned with her own values. The path ahead might be uncharted, but her moral compass remained fixed. The train announcement indicated her stop was approaching. Maya gathered her things, including the tablet containing drafts of the press release scheduled for distribution the following morning. By this time tomorrow, her life would be irrevocably altered. Her name and innovations, public knowledge, her connection to Thorne Industries established in business circles around the world. Yet, as she walked the familiar route from the station to her apartment building, greeting neighbors and local shopkeepers who had no idea of the day's developments, Maya felt a peculiar sense of double existence. She was simultaneously the struggling mechanic they had always known and the emerging technology executive she was becoming. One foot in each world, not fully belonging to either. The contradiction didn't trouble her as much as she might have expected. Perhaps this liminal space offered unique perspective, the ability to see both worlds clearly and navigate between them with purpose. Perhaps that perspective was precisely what made her innovations possible in the first place. As she climbed the stairs to her apartment, Maya's phone chimed with a final message from Jackson. "Congratulations again on today. Your journey is just beginning, but I believe it will take you and all of us somewhere remarkable." Whether prophetic or merely polite, the words resonated with Maya's own sense of standing at a threshold. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new scrutiny, new expectations. But it would also bring the resources to finally transform her ideas from prototype to reality, from theory to global impact. And that possibility, the chance to create meaningful change through her work, was worth navigating whatever complications might accompany it. 6 months after signing the partnership agreement, Maya stood in the cavernous testing facility of Chen Efficiency Systems, watching as technicians prepared the 100th vehicle to be retrofitted with her modifications. The space, a converted warehouse in Westfield's industrial district, hummed with purposeful activity as engineers calibrated equipment and mechanics installed specialized components. Final preparations for the logistics company rollout are on schedule, reported Adrian Moss, the operations director Maya had hired from a competing automotive firm. If today's calibrations go as planned, we'll begin installing the systems in their fleet next week. Maya nodded, studying the diagnostic displays with practiced attention. The months since the partnership announcement had passed in a blur of hiring decisions, facility preparations, prototype refinements, and endless meetings. The initial media frenzy, garage mechanic revolutionizes engine efficiency, partners with tech billionaire, had eventually subsided, allowing her to focus on the actual work of bringing her innovations to market. The fuel consumption data from the pilot vehicles is exceeding projections by nearly 3%, Adrian continued, swiping through charts on her tablet. The client is ecstatic. 3% matters when you're operating thousands of vehicles, Maya observed, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. The preliminary results validated not just her technical innovations, but the decision to partner with Thorn Industries. Without their resources and connections, her modifications might have remained theoretical for years. A notification chimed on Maya's phone, a reminder of the board meeting scheduled for that afternoon at Thorn Tower. Though she still maintained her small apartment in Riverside, practical considerations had led her to use the corporate apartment. During particularly intense work periods, today would likely be another late night at headquarters. Will Jackson be attending the board meeting? Adrienne asked casually as they walked toward the facility exit. The question carried subtle undertones Maya had grown accustomed to navigating. Jackson's involvement with Chen efficiency systems had sparked inevitable speculation about their relationship, despite Maya's careful maintenance of professional boundaries. I believe so, she replied neutrally. The quarterly projections are on the agenda. The truth was more complicated. Jackson's presence at meetings had become increasingly unpredictable over recent months. Initially a regular participant in development discussions, he had gradually pulled back, delegating most oversight to Victor Reynolds while focusing on other Thorn Industries initiatives. Maya had mixed feelings about this evolution. On one hand, it suggested confidence in her leadership and reduced the social complications of frequent interaction. On the other, it sometimes fed her lingering doubts about his long-term commitment to the partnership. The sleek company car delivered Maya to Thorn Tower with 15 minutes to spare before the board meeting. As she rode the executive elevator, she reflected on how quickly she had adapted to the corporate environment she had once viewed with skepticism. The security badges, executive assistants, and boardroom protocols that had initially seemed foreign now felt almost routine. Almost, but not quite. Maya still approached each high-level meeting with the same meticulous preparation she had applied to her initial presentation, never taking her position for granted. Being the youngest person in the room, and often the only woman, created pressure to prove herself repeatedly, regardless of her technical credentials or ownership stake. The boardroom was already half-filled when she arrived. Victor Reynolds nodded acknowledgement from his seat, while several other Thorn Industries executives greeted her with varying degrees of warmth. Though resistance to her leadership had diminished as performance data validated her innovations, Maya remained aware of the subtle currents of institutional politics. Jackson entered precisely at the scheduled start time, bringing with him the focused energy that characterized his professional demeanor. If he was surprised to see Maya already seated and prepared, he didn't show it. Let's begin with the Chen Efficiency Systems quarterly report, he suggested after brief preliminaries. Maya, would you walk us through the highlights? For the next 20 minutes, Maya presented comprehensive data on the division's progress, manufacturing timelines, efficiency benchmarks, client feedback, and financial projections. The numbers told a compelling story of innovation successfully transitioning to implementation, with potential environmental impact that aligned perfectly with Thorn Industries' sustainability initiatives. "Impressive results," Jackson commented, when she concluded, particularly the accelerated timeline for the logistics company rollout. "The technical team has exceeded expectations," Meyer acknowledged, distributing credit appropriately, "and the manufacturing adjustments Victor's department suggested have significantly improved production efficiency." The remainder of the meeting covered broader corporate matters, market conditions, competitive positioning, strategic initiatives in other divisions. Meyer participated actively where relevant, noting with satisfaction that her contributions were now received as matter-of-factly as those from longer-established executives. As the meeting concluded, Jackson caught her eye. "Do you have a moment to discuss something privately?" They retreated to his office, a surprisingly understated space given his position, with furnishings chosen for function rather than status. Signaling. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered the same spectacular city view as Meyer's corporate apartment, reminding her how thoroughly her professional world had transformed. "The board is extremely pleased with CES's progress," Jackson began, gesturing for her to take a seat. "You've validated our investment several times over." "The team has performed exceptionally," Meyer replied, deflecting personal credit as had become her habit. "And your infrastructure made rapid implementation possible." Jackson studied her with an expression she couldn't quite interpret. "You've grown into leadership remarkably well for someone who had never managed others before." The observation, now though accurate, made Meyer slightly uncomfortable. "I had excellent examples to learn from," she said carefully. "Perhaps," Jackson acknowledged, "but there's a natural authority that can't be taught." He leaned forward slightly. "Which brings me to the reason I wanted to speak privately. The Singapore expansion. Where are your thoughts on that?" The question caught Meyer off guard. The potential to expand Chen efficiency systems to Asian markets had been mentioned conceptually in long-term planning, but with implementation still ongoing domestically, she hadn't expected it to become immediate priority. "We've done preliminary research on regulatory requirements and manufacturing capacities," she replied, rapidly organizing her thoughts. "But realistically, we're at least 6 months from being ready for international expansion." Jackson nodded. "Under normal circumstances, I would agree, but circumstances have changed." Something in his tone alerted Meyer that this conversation was more significant than routine strategic planning. "What's happened?" "Hoffman Communications is acquiring a significant position in our main competitor," Jackson explained, watching her reaction closely. "Caroline's father has apparently decided that if he can't control Thorn Industries through marriage, he'll challenge us in the marketplace." The implications unfolded rapidly in Meyer's mind. "They're targeting our sustainable technology initiatives." "Precisely. We need to accelerate our expansion, particularly in emerging markets, to establish dominance before they can position competing technologies." Jackson's expression hardened slightly. "William Hoffman has apparently been planning this move for months while maintaining the pretense of supporting the engagement." This explained much about Jackson's increasingly distracted demeanor and unpredictable schedule in recent weeks. "I assume the engagement is off then." "As of last week," Jackson confirmed, "though the public announcement won't come until next month for market stability reasons." Meyer absorbed this information carefully, maintaining a neutral expression, despite the sudden acceleration of her pulse. "I'm sorry about the personal complications," she offered diplomatically. "But regarding Singapore, yes, we can accelerate preparations. I'll need additional resources and authority to proceed effectively." The quick pivot to professional matters seemed to please Jackson. "Already arranged. The board has approved expanded budget and staffing for CES, effective immediately. You'll have whatever you need to establish operations in Singapore within 3 months." 3 months is ambitious, Maya cautioned, mentally calculating logistics, but possible with proper support. I have complete confidence in your abilities, Jackson stated with surprising intensity. You've exceeded every expectation since our partnership began. There was something almost personal in his tone that triggered Maya's caution. Whatever was happening between Jackson and the Hoffman family was corporate warfare at levels far beyond her experience. Getting caught in those cross-currents could endanger everything she had built. I appreciate your confidence, she replied, professionally. I'll begin restructuring the team immediately to accommodate the accelerated timeline. As Maya left Thorn Tower that evening, her mind raced with implications beyond the immediate expansion challenges. Jackson's broken engagement would inevitably affect company dynamics, particularly if it led to active competition with Hoffman Communications. Where did that leave Chen Efficiency Systems and Maya herself? Rather than returning to the corporate apartment, Maya directed her driver to Riverside. She needed the grounding influence of home, the perspective of family untouched by corporate politics and billion-dollar rivalries. The apartment was fragrant with cooking aromas when she arrived. Her grandmother had prepared traditional dumplings, a comfort food from Maya's childhood, reserved for celebrations and family discussions. I sensed you would come home tonight, her grandmother remarked as Maya shed her tailored blazer and collapsed onto the worn sofa. Important decisions in the air. Maya smiled despite her fatigue. Her grandmother's intuition remained uncannily accurate. How did you know? Your voice on the phone this morning. Something shifting. The older woman set a plate of dumplings before her. Eat first, then talk. Liam emerged from his room, immediately helping himself to food. At 20, he had grown more confident in the months since Maya's partnership with Thorn Industries had relieved financial pressures. His programming studies were flourishing, supplemented now by specialized courses Maya's new connections had helped him access. Corporate drama, he guessed, noting his sister's expression. Or just regular exhaustion from changing the world. Maya explained the Singapore acceleration and the underlying competitive dynamics while they ate. She deliberately minimized the personal aspects of Jackson's situation, focusing instead on the professional challenges the expanded timeline presented. 3 months is insane, Liam observed, even with unlimited resources. It's ambitious, Maya corrected, but possible with the right team. I'm thinking of asking Dr. Patel to lead the technical implementation. He has experience in Asian markets. And Thorn is just handing you whatever you need because his girlfriend's daddy is. Being mean. Liam's skepticism was evident. Seems like you're being pulled into a billionaire's revenge strategy. The blunt assessment uncomfortably echoed Maya's own concerns. The expansion makes strategic sense regardless of timing, she defended. Singapore provides access to multiple Asian markets with growing demand for efficiency technologies. Just be careful you don't become collateral damage in their corporate war, Liam warned. These people play by different rules. Their grandmother, who had been listening silently, finally spoke. The opportunity tests your strength, not just your skills, she observed. Power reveals character, yours and theirs. The simple wisdom resonated. Maya had proven her technical abilities and initial leadership capacity. Now she faced a different challenge, navigating complex corporate dynamics while maintaining her integrity and vision. I won't compromise my values, she stated firmly. The environmental impact of our technology remains the priority, regardless of competitive pressures. Good, her grandmother approved. Success without principles is empty achievement. Later that night, as Maya prepared for bed in her old room, so much smaller than the corporate apartment, yet comforting in its familiarity, her phone chimed. With a message from Jackson, I realize the timeline I've requested is challenging. I wouldn't ask if I didn't believe you were capable. This isn't just business strategy. Your innovations deserve global implementation before others can introduce inferior alternatives. The message was carefully professional, while conveying personal confidence in her abilities. Maya composed an equally measured response. We'll make it happen. I'm restructuring the team tomorrow to focus on Singapore preparations. Only after sending did she realize how naturally she had stepped into her expanded leadership role, accepting the challenge without hesitation. 6 months ago, she would have questioned her qualifications for managing international expansion. Now she approached it as a complex but solvable problem. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of strategic planning, team reorganization, and intensive research into Singaporean regulations and business practices. Maya divided her time between the testing facility, where domestic implementation continued to exceed projections, and Thorn Tower, where international expansion plans took shape with remarkable speed. Jackson remained actively engaged in these preparations, attending key meetings and providing resources without hesitation. His involvement was strictly professional, focused entirely on strategic objectives rather than personal matters, though Maya occasionally caught him watching her, with an expression that seemed to contain more than corporate interest. 3 weeks into the accelerated timeline, as Maya worked late in her office, reviewing manufacturing specifications for the Singapore facility, Eliza appeared at her door with an unusual request. Jackson would like you to join him for dinner this evening, she announced, to discuss some sensitive aspects of the expansion. Maya glanced at her watch. Nearly 8 p.m., well beyond normal business hours. Can't it wait until tomorrow's executive meeting? He was specific about wanting to discuss this privately, Eliza replied, her expression neutral, but her eyes communicating something more complicated. The reservation is at Meridian at 9. A car will be waiting downstairs if you accept. The invitation triggered immediate caution. Though numerous business meals had been part of Maya's new professional life, a private dinner with Jackson, particularly now with his engagement recently terminated, carried different implications. What exactly does he want to discuss? Maya pressed. He didn't share details, Eliza admitted, but he mentioned it relates to information about Hoffman Communications that isn't ready for wider dissemination. The explanation was plausible given the competitive situation, yet Maya remained wary. Please tell Jackson I'll meet him at Meridian, she decided. I have some calls to finish first, so I'll take my own car. The small assertion of independence, declining the offered transportation, felt important, a way of maintaining boundaries even while accepting the meeting. Meridian occupied the top floor of one of Westfield's historic buildings, offering panoramic views and discreet private dining alcoves for conversations requiring confidentiality. As the maitre d' led Maya to a secluded table where Jackson waited, she reminded herself firmly that this was a business discussion, regardless of the intimate setting. Thank you for coming on such short notice, Jackson greeted her, standing as she approached. I apologize for the unusual timing. No problem, Maya replied evenly, taking the offered seat. Eliza mentioned you have information about Hoffman Communications. If Jackson was surprised by her direct approach, he didn't show it. Yes, but let's order first. The discussion may take some time. Throughout the preliminary conversation and ordering process, Maya maintained carefully professional demeanor, steering topics toward the Singapore expansion and technical challenges rather than personal matters. Jackson followed her lead, engaging thoughtfully on operational details, while avoiding anything that might suggest ulterior motives for the dinner. Only after their entrees arrived did he introduce the actual purpose of their meeting. Our intelligence suggests that Hoffman is attempting to recruit key members of your technical team, he stated without preamble, specifically targeting those with detailed knowledge of your modification designs. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.